Hi, I'm Heidi Jensen, Program Dietitian. Today we're going to talk about behavior modifications for success post-weight loss surgery. We're going to review mindful eating, keeping food records, overcoming emotional eating, and weight-proofing our homes. The modern way of life has become perpetual motion. We're always racing from one task to the next, barely knowing what we're doing, multitasking, and unfortunately this has also started to include our eating habits. Do you eat in your car or in front of the television? Have you ever sat down to finish a meal or scrape the bottom of a bag of chips without even realizing that it was your last bite? What is important is trying to become more aware of our food and how our bodies feel when we eat it. This promotes mindful eating, or also what we can say is being present in the moment when it comes to our nutrition. We need to think about how our body feels as we're progressing through a meal. How do you feel when you're satisfied? How do you feel when you're overly full? Do you know where your food's coming from and how it is fueling your body? These things are what's known as mindful eating. We need to make sure that we're slowing down. Plan to eat your meal in about 15 to 30 minutes. We really don't want to eat less than 15 minutes and be eating too fast, but we also don't want to spread out your meal where you're eating longer than 30 minutes. Focus on chewing every bite at least 20 to 25 times. Chewing your food to a paste-like consistency is going to help with the tolerance of foods post-surgery. It also helps us become more in tune with when we're satisfied and when we're full. Physically set your utensils or food down between each bite. It helps us, instead of preloading where we're eating very quickly, we need to force ourselves to take a step back and eat more slowly. It helps some people to use smaller spoons, even things like a baby spoon, to force ourselves to take smaller bites. We want to try to decrease distractions when we're eating. Try to eat at a designated place in your home or at work. This shouldn't be in front of the TV, and it shouldn't be at your desk while you're working and doing other things and multitasking. Turn off all the distractions. Turn off the TV, shut off your phone, turn off the iPad, and stop looking at your computer and checking emails. That can wait. We need to clear our mind before we start eating. If you're stressed or upset, you might even learn to take a few deep breaths to try to relax and focus on the next activity in mind, and that's really focusing on our nutrition and the meal that's at hand. Notice your food. How does it taste? How does it smell? What's the texture like in our mouths? Physically looking at the plate. Is it colorful? Thinking about which bite is going to be most enjoyable. Is it your first bite, your last bite, or one in between? Notice how your body feels. How do you feel before you start eating? When do you know when you're hungry? What sensations do you experience? I recommend that you try to rate your hunger on a scale of 1 to 10, with 1 not being hungry at all and 10 being ravenously hungry. We should be eating when we're somewhere in between. Constantly ask yourself when you're going to reach for food or even drinks that are full of calories if you really need to be eating that, or if you're mindlessly eating or emotionally eating based on being tired, bored, stressed, sad, lonely, happy. All of those things can lead us into the direction of food when it's not actually mealtime. How do you tell when you're full or satisfied? It's important to learn our body cues so that we can stop before we're to that point of being overly full. What helps some people is just learning to keep food records. I know food records can be tedious, and I know every dietitian has probably asked you to do that, but it really helps to keep us accountable and mindful of what we're actually eating. It's going to allow you to learn about your eating habits. What are your triggers? Do you graze constantly between your meals, or do you stick to your 2 to 3 meals per day? What foods keep you the most satisfied? When do you fall off your eating plan? Is it when you have a certain emotion, or is it because you're not prepared or you have a lack of time?
The important thing is we need to learn what your habits are so that then we can set yourself up for success. Food records are only going to be as good as what you put into them. So we need to be honest, and you need to be diligent when you're tracking. They're really meant for you to be able to learn about yourself. So what do we do when we're tracking foods? We need to record everything, every food and drink that we consume. When I say everything, I mean everything that passes your lips on the days that you're keeping your food records. Include any meals, any snacks, any drinks, any candy, any chewing gum. Write down what time you're eating and how long it took you to eat it. And also think about noting your hunger level. Remember, we're rating our hunger on a scale of 1 to 10 so that you begin to notice what your body feels like when it's hungry and when you're actually eating. Record your mood and your thoughts when you're eating. Do you tend to eat more or less when you're stressed? Do you tend to eat more or less when you're happy? We need to come up with the connection of how our emotions can affect the amount of food that we eat. And also recording the amount of the food. And for a while, even get out your measuring cups or actually weigh your food. You don't have to do this every time, but we really need to have a really good estimate of how much food is actually going on your plate and what we're consuming. And then last but not least is including things like the cooking method or the brand of the foods. So when it comes to keeping food records, everybody has a different way that works for them. You can use a paper copy. You can find copies of food records off of our website that you can just keep with you and take pen to paper to write down everything that you're doing. Some people prefer to use their computer and use websites such as FitDay or USDA Super Tracker. Or maybe you have your phone or an iPad and you can use like a smartphone app. My personal favorite is MyFitnessPal, but others have shared they like different apps like Spark People or Lose It. There's a lot out there, so just finding the one that works for you. Then once you've completed your food records, look them over and see what you observe. Are you eating enough protein? Are you drinking enough water? Did you eat more than 3 times that day? What's your highest fat or calorie contributions? How many calories are you drinking in beverages? What surprised you? Were you satisfied with your meals? Did you eat anything that was unplanned? You need to learn from what you're doing and then set yourself up for success. We're going to also kind of talk about overcoming emotional eating. We can all use food when we're not hungry to help us deal with a variety of different conditions. So I'm going to give a couple of different situations and examples to help us combat emotional eating. One is controlling stimulus control. That means keeping snacks, keeping trigger foods out of your house, out of your chest drawer. If you're going to want those foods, you're going to have to go out of your way for them. Practicing restraint. Limit your food consumption when you're in social situations where you might have a more difficult time being mindful of what you're eating. This might be only focusing on getting the smallest plate possible or only stacking a couple of things on a napkin. You really have to be careful of how much that you're doing. Come up with an alternative behavior. Learn relaxation techniques or come up with alternative coping mechanisms other than eating. Can you take a walk? What can you do to divert yourself? Have some social support. Find an accountability partner that you can talk to when you feel vulnerable. When you're in a state where you might be feeling down, feeling lonely, feeling stressed, come up with someone that's going to help you kind of pull through those phases so that you're not drawn to that emotional eating. We also have what we call compensatory planning. You want to try to plan ahead to have low-calorie items, things like carrots or other non-starchy vegetables, sugar-free popsicles, to have in situations where you might be prone to snacking on higher fat or higher calorie foods. Maybe it's the Super Bowl and there's going to be a lot of food around. Set yourself up for success with things that aren't going to help you fall off of your plan. Also, just having alternative thoughts. Distract yourself by doing something instead of eating. And also what is known as thought consequences.
we really want to think about what our long-term consequences are for overeating. Think about what your motivation is. Why did you start on this journey? And come up with something that's going to visually remind you of what your motivation is. Maybe that's a picture, maybe it's a bracelet, maybe it's a place that you want to shop at, or it's a place that you want to visit. Have those visual cues and put it as many places as you can. The screensaver on your computer, a picture in your kitchen, on the refrigerator, or on the cupboard door. But we want to focus on that visual reminder of what our long-term motivation is instead of snacking or instead of making rash food choices when we're unprepared, such as going through a fast food restaurant or choosing that high-calorie beverage. Set yourself up for success. Also think about weight-proofing your home. Create a healthy, friendly environment. Put up those visual cues. Turn off all the electronics when you're eating. Purge your cupboards, freezer, fridge of all of those high-fat, high-calorie foods and temptations. If they're there, you're going to know they're there. You're going to be tempted. Make sure that you always have plenty of lean proteins and non-starchy vegetables that you can use to make a quick, easy meal. And keep your workout gear in sight. Keep your resistance bands or your weights sitting in a basket in your living room. So if you're sitting down to watch your favorite TV show, try to use those resistance bands or weights during the commercials. Something that's going to help to keep you on track. Think about items for your kitchen. Small storage containers so that you can always have food readily prepared. Vegetable preparation tools. Have a chopper, peeler, grater, or steamer. Maybe a non-stick countertop grill like a George Foreman grill. Various low-calorie condiments, so we're not using added fats, things like gourmet mustards or salsas. And also meal replacements, because there's going to be that time when you're not prepared, and instead of catching yourself in an emergency kind of red zone situation, you're making sure that you have your healthy choice right there. And also don't forget to have items to nurture yourself. It's all about rewarding ourselves for the good work done. So whether that's, taking a bath, drinking some herbal tea, lighting a candle, or getting a massage, do something that feels good for yourself other than using food. Set yourself up for success with all of these behavior changes. Congratulations on starting the journey to a new you.